Listen, the story is intense. When your own father decides to punish you for not wanting to pay someone else's debts, this isn't just a conflict, it's betrayal. My mom works in an office and I'm very familiar with situations like this. This isn't just a video for views, it's a story based on real feelings on something that many people face. All names, addresses and company names have been changed, of course, but the emotions are real. I just don't want anyone else to go through this alone.
I knew something was wrong the second I saw the red login alert banner flash across my home screen. 7:16 a.m., coffee half brewed, hair still up in that limp ponytail I hadn't replaced since the night before. I hadn't logged into that account in over a week. So why was there a flagged attempt from an IP 2 towns over? I clicked into the logs, expecting maybe it was me on mobile. Or some fluke. It wasn't. Session ID matched an unfamiliar device. Subnet pinged to a residential ISP in Norwalk, where my parents lived. That's when the pit started forming. You know the kind. Not fear exactly. Not yet. Just that bone-cold tug at your ribs when something doesn't line up. If this story finds you right now, please do me one favor. Tap the subscribe button, hit the like. It really helps more people hear stories like this. 97% don't, but it means the world to those of us sharing what we've lived. Back to it. I killed the session remotely. Ran a forensic scan on my end. No breach. No keylogger. Nothing shady on my machine. The intrusion had come clean from the front door, not the back alley. Then I opened the transaction logs. My savings account gone. Not drained slowly. Not skimmed. Just emptied. 17 years of careful budgeting, consulting payouts, every emergency fund, and quiet vacation plan vanished overnight. The withdrawal had been initiated in two segments, one flagged ACH out, the other marked as an external verified recipient. No names listed, but the receiving bank matched the same one my dad used for his pension. For a second, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Some internal routing glitch. A fluke transfer. So I checked the recovery log. The two-factor reset had gone through 4 hours earlier. Recovery email? Not mine. My stomach dropped. It was his. Not a guess. Not a maybe. His full name, Daniel Fenwick, on the masked email suffix. I stared at it for 10 full minutes, hands hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to pick up the phone right then and ask him. Part of me wanted to believe there was a reason, some explanation that didn't end with betrayal. But the realist in me, the one who'd spent years building firewalls, double-auth systems, cold backups, and lockout sequences, knew better. He hadn't stumbled into my account. He had planned it. And the worst part? He'd waited until after Emily's birthday. After the hugs. After the candles. After that quiet moment where she smiled and thanked me for always being there. That night, she'd made some offhand comment about finally catching up on some things, while Dad just sipped his beer and nodded. They knew. They had already done it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, still in my robe, looking out the kitchen window at the frost climbing up the glass. My cat pawed at my slipper, but I didn't move. My father had stolen from me. Not borrowed. Stolen. And it wasn't just money. It was trust. Foundation. The belief that no matter how twisted things got, family wouldn't cross certain lines. I could have called the bank immediately. Could have locked down everything. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I walked to the fireproof lockbox in my closet, pulled out the yellow folder labeled fallback. Inside was something I'd quietly filed over a year ago when I first noticed odd behavior, Dad poking around my business tax papers during a visit, asking strangely specific questions about account consolidation. Back then, I'd brushed it off as curiosity, but not anymore. The folder held a notarized affidavit, my signature, a digital trail document, and an optional fraud complaint pre-filled, just waiting. I never thought I'd use it, but that morning, I laid it out on the counter, smoothed the corners, and started breathing through my nose, slow and steady, because this wasn't just about revenge. It was about boundaries, and they'd just crossed mine. I called him from the porch, just as the wind started to cut through the early spring air, sharp and cold, like the conversation that followed. 3 rings. Then his voice, calm as ever, like we were discussing lawn care or traffic. He didn't even sound guilty. I had to bail out Emily, he said. She owed some people. You have money, she doesn't. Simple math. Simple math. That's what he called it. As if draining my savings account, every cent I'd worked a decade for, was just a spreadsheet error in the family ledger. I didn't even bother asking what people she owed. I knew Emily. Knew her string of impulsive ventures and debt dodges dressed up as life pivots. The Etsy candle empire. The coaching retreat she never showed up to. The guy named Seth who promised to turn her credit around for a fee and a key to her apartment. So instead, I asked, "Why didn't you just ask me?" His answer was fast. No hesitation. Because you would have said no. I stared at the gravel under my shoes, gripping the edge of the porch railing, trying to keep my voice steady. That wasn't your money. He exhaled like I was the disappointment, then hung up. No explanation. No remorse. Just silence. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Emily. Emily, whose biggest accomplishment in the last year was getting a retweet from a guy who does TikTok tarot readings. Her message read, "You'll get it back. Just give it a few months." I didn't want it like this. No apology. No ownership. No mention of how she'd let our father do the dirty work while she played dumb over cake and birthday candles. I didn't reply. I opened my laptop, entered the multi-layered access code, and decrypted the fallback drive. Inside, clean documentation, timestamped logs, bank notices, email correspondence, and most importantly, a notarized affidavit I'd filed last April when I caught my father flipping through my quarterly tax summary during a family visit. He'd played it off then, asking questions about corporate flow-through and redundant withholding like he was doing a book club on irs.gov. But I remembered the way he lingered on the numbers. The way his tone shifted from curious to calculated. So I'd made a copy of everything. Affidavit signed in front of a notary. Included, a note explaining the nature of my firm structure, access privileges, and that no one besides me had authorization to move funds from personal reserves. It wasn't paranoia. It was insurance. And now, sitting in front of me like a loaded chamber, it was proof. I didn't cry, didn't scream. My heart wasn't even racing. What I felt was something quieter, something heavier. A kind of disappointment that doesn't scream, it just sinks. Deep, cold, and permanent. Because when your own father chooses your sister's recklessness over your trust, you realize something brutal. Love is not always protection. Sometimes it's currency. And mine just got cashed in without consent. So I clicked open the voice memo app, played the recording I'd made minutes earlier. His voice. My question. His answer, because you would have said no. Then I archived it under a new folder. Title, Evidence, Fenwick. Because if they were going to treat me like the family bank, they were about to find out what happens when the vault goes cold. That night, I didn't toss and turn. I didn't pace. I didn't drink myself to sleep or call a friend to rant. I sat at my desk, turned on the desk lamp, opened the report portal for identity theft through my bank's partner agency, the one we recommend to clients when we catch phishing attempts or compromised logins. I knew the process inside out. I designed a chunk of the UI 2 years ago. Under the incident summary box, I typed carefully, clinically. Unknown actor accessed restricted personal funds via unauthorized credential recovery. Incident confirmed by forensic IP log and supported by attached affidavit and admission. I didn't use his name in the field, but in the attachment, his name sat at the top of the notarized affidavit like a quiet anchor, Daniel Fenwick. Attached, IP log screenshots. Two-factor reset confirmation, showing the masked recovery email. Audio file. The voice memo of his admission, leveled for clarity and time-stamped. No dramatics. No finger-pointing. Just evidence. I hit submit. Then I activated something I never thought I'd use. Lockdown protocol. Years ago, I'd built a failsafe for myself, buried deep in my private network. A cascade trigger tied to a single condition. If my personal savings account ever hit zero due to an unverified transaction, it would auto-lock every auxiliary shared asset connected to me. The trigger hit. First, The mirrored copies of all shared cloud folders were sealed. Access permissions revoked, even for people like Emily, who'd once had limited viewing rights on our joint trust discussions. Then the shared health proxy I'd set up for my parents revoked. All the systems I maintained quietly behind the scenes, all the bridges I built to help the people I loved navigate life without getting lost in paperwork, frozen. Because I wasn't going to let someone siphon my future and keep the keys to my infrastructure. I watched the logs ping green, one by one. 7 systems locked. 4 triggers activated. 1 contingency file, codeword Fenwick, deployed to a legal monitoring server I retained in Nevada. The bank responded by morning. A fraud specialist named Cora flagged the report for immediate escalation. Her message was short. Evidence chain verified. Identity misuse likely confirmed. Cross-referencing IP for any linked cases. At 11:22 a.m., a second email followed. Additional activity matched. Prior flagged case under same IP range. Shared surname noted. Escalating to Tier 3. I read it once, then shut the laptop. Didn't smile. Didn't feel victorious. What I felt was stillness. Like the moment after you cut the last cord, keeping a sinking ship tethered to yours. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was clear. For so long, I'd played the part they cast me in. The fixer. The quiet one who shows up with a check, an apology they never deserved, and a hand steady enough to patch holes while the boat leaks anyway. But this time, they didn't just poke a hole. They tried to sink me. And I didn't scream. I just cut the line. Because sometimes, silence doesn't mean surrender. It means ignition. 2 days later, I was fixing a batch script for a client when my phone lit up. Mark. My cousin on Dad's side, the one who always tried to play peacekeeper, even when nobody asked him to. I let it go to voicemail the first time. Then again, 30 minutes later. By the 3rd missed call, I paused the debugger and picked up. His voice was a mix of panic and secondhand chaos. Hey, your dad's freaking out. Something about bank accounts being frozen? Audit alerts? I don't know what you did, but he's losing it. Says he can't access anything and Emily's pissed too. I didn't reply. Just sat there, letting the silence drag long enough to make him squirm. He tried again. Are you okay? I mean, I get things are tense, but this seems extreme. I muted the call. Let him talk to dead air until he gave up and hung up. By the weekend, it wasn't just frantic calls. It was movement. I kept tabs without looking like I cared. That's the beauty of systems. You don't need to chase drama when audit logs and compliance pings bring it straight to your inbox. Their joint account, Dad and Emily, flagged for irregular activity. 2 large transfers to unverified accounts within days of mine being wiped. One of them routed through a peer-to-peer crypto portal notorious for laundering debt consolidation scams. The bank didn't ask questions. They just froze the account. Uncleared transfers. Pending investigations. Suspicious activity alert distributed to their risk team. Emily posted a vague Instagram story about fake people ruining real families over a blurry shot of a wine glass and her dog curled up on a couch I bought her 2 years ago. I didn't respond. Didn't watch it twice. Dad, though? He tried the old playbook. He marched into the local branch like bluster could overwrite code. Demanded to speak to a manager. Said it was all a misunderstanding, a family mix-up. Security escorted him out before the teller even printed the transaction log. I didn't need to hear about it from Mark. The bank's internal alert system, one I helped design years ago for fraud incident routing, logged the whole thing. ID scanned. Match flagged. Incident tag, cred, X46, parental. I'd given them the name. They'd given me the trace. But the real kicker? I was sipping tea, watching the logs unfold when I got curious and searched Reddit. Typed in his usual username, one I remembered from back when he used it to ask tech questions about upgrading his old laptop. Sure enough, there he was. r/personal finance, 5 hours ago. Post title, what do you do when your adult kid turns on you and gets your accounts frozen? How can I prove I had a right to the money? Replies were brutal. Top comment, if you access someone else's account, especially without consent, that's not a misunderstanding. That's a felony. Someone else asked if the adult kid was pressing charges. Another just said, sounds like they finally set a boundary. Good for them. He stopped replying after the fifth comment. I didn't gloat. Didn't even screenshot it. Just clicked away. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. And for once, it wasn't mine to carry. Monday morning, 7:08 a.m. I'd barely taken 2 sips of coffee when the knock hit loud, urgent, no rhythm. Not a neighbor. Not a delivery. The kind of knock that jolts your spine before your brain catches up. Police. Open up. I froze. Mug still in hand. My first thought, Emily. Something happened. Maybe she finally spiraled far enough to get herself hurt. Or maybe this was fallout from Dad making threats. I opened the door slowly, cautious but calm. 2 officers stood there. Uniforms crisp. One with a clipboard, the other with that heavy kind of stare people wear when they're about to talk in full sentences and legal codes. Are you Amelia Fenwick? Yes. We're not here for you. We're serving a warrant. For your father, Daniel Fenwick. I blinked. The air thinned like the floor forgot to hold me up. For what? The officer flipped the page like it wasn't the 100th time today. Wire fraud. Identity misuse. 2 confirmed counts. Multiple pending. We'll need to verify a few documents you submitted last week, just to cross-reference. I stepped aside without a word, motioning toward the desk where everything had started. The affidavit. The voice memo. The logs. They didn't even need the full rundown. They had most of it already. What they were really here for was confirmation that I hadn't filed out of malice. That it was real. Verifiable. Patterned. Turns out, my affidavit didn't just trigger the fraud unit, it auto-linked to another open investigation. A relative I hadn't spoken to in years had filed a similar complaint months ago. Small amount, no documentation, and no follow-up. Her case stalled. Mine hit with evidence. Digital logs. IP trails. Audio. I didn't want this, I said quietly, almost to myself. The officer paused, softening slightly. It's not about wanting it. It's about stopping it. Then he added something I'll never forget. This isn't about money. It's about a pattern. Yours just had evidence. They left a formal verification document for my records. Case number. Assigned detective. I closed the door and stood in the hallway, hand still hovering over the knob like if I moved too fast, the walls might collapse from the pressure. Emily called 30 minutes later. I let it ring out. Then, for the first time in a week, I opened my curtains. Outside, the world looked the same, buses running, dog walkers doing their routine, someone struggling to parallel park across the street. But inside, everything had changed. This wasn't just a family rift. It was a reckoning. And my silence had finally made noise. The call came on a Thursday around noon. I saw Emily's name flash across the screen as I was reviewing a contract for a new corporate client in Dallas. I let it ring once, twice, then answered, not out of curiosity, just closure. Her voice came in sharp, controlled, but barely. You set him up, she hissed. You knew exactly what would happen. You didn't warn him. You didn't talk to him. You just built a trap. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence sit, heavy and clean. She filled it, of course. Always did. He only wanted to protect me, she added, softer this time. Like maybe if she played the little sister card, I'd cave. Like my spine hadn't calcified after years of being the fallback plan she never thanked. My voice stayed even. He could have asked. He chose to take. A pause. Then the ask I knew was coming. We need help with legal fees. We. As if she were the one being charged. As if being the recipient of a theft made her a victim of justice. No, I said. Flat. Final. I didn't explain. Didn't apologize. Just hung up. Then I opened my financial console and initiated the restructure I'd been drafting since the morning the bank account drained. I split my firm's assets into 3 shells: consulting, investment, and retention. Then moved each one into a newly formed trust. A trust that could only be accessed through dual escrow clearance, one digital key tied to me, the other to a bonded fiduciary with no personal stake in any Fenwick. It wasn't just about security. It was about finality. No more bridges. No more silent access paths. No more, oops, I thought this card was mine. The name of the trust? Fenwick Protection Clause. A quiet nod to a bedtime story my father used to tell me about a knight who built a fortress so strong no dragon could enter. He always ended it the same way. The fortress didn't keep the world out, sweetheart. It kept the heart safe. I was 8 when I first heard it. I was 34 when I realized he never believed a word of it. But I did. And now that fortress existed. In code. In contract. In layers of escrow protocols that not even Emily's latest influencer lawyer boyfriend could worm through. The paperwork was signed by Friday. Finalized Monday. And by Wednesday, my firm's value sat fully outside any legacy family reach. No beneficiaries shared my last name. No fallback emails traced back to childhood homes. It was mine. Clean. Cold. Quiet. Emily texted again that weekend. This isn't you. You're not this cold. I didn't answer. Because she was wrong. This was me. The version of me they built every time they said you're overreacting or you're lucky to even have money to take. Every time they expected I'd just fix it, fund it, or forgive it. I didn't become cold. I became precise. And when I finally chose peace, I made sure it was locked behind gates no thief could touch. Not even blood. The first letter came 2 days after he made bail. Plain white envelope. Familiar handwriting. My name written like it still belonged to him. I didn't open it. I held it for a moment, ran my thumb along the edge, then placed it back in the mailbox and closed the lid. I didn't need to read it. I already knew what it would say. He was sorry. It was a misunderstanding. He'd panicked. He only wanted to help Emily. He thought I'd understand. But he wouldn't say what really mattered. He wouldn't say, I stole from you. And without that, nothing else was worth hearing. The voicemails started after that. Always late. Always rambling. Like he was rehearsing sympathy without ever quite committing to it. You have to know I didn't mean harm. It was just a mistake. Families do things for each other. What families don't do is steal from the one person who's never asked for anything but respect. What families don't do is weaponize love like a withdrawal slip. I never called back. Never messaged. Not once. The second letter came a week later. This one thicker. Probably a longer justification. Or maybe pictures, like that could rewind anything. I didn't open that one either. Instead, I pulled out a single envelope of my own. No note. No explanation. Just one printed page, folded crisp. On it, a screenshot from the bank's internal access panel. His name. His masked email. And the red tag, bold and final. Do not reinstate access. Client requested permanent block. I sealed it. Wrote his name on the front. Mailed it back to the return address he'd used. Emily texted the next day. Predictably. Just unblock him. Let him explain. It's been hard on him. As if betrayal needed a grace period. As if him losing sleep suddenly meant I owed him closure. I stared at the message for a long time. Not angry. Not sad. Just done. I didn't reply. Because she wasn't asking for healing. She was asking for access. And I'd already revoked it. All of it. Not just the accounts. Not just the financial ties. But the open door policy I'd kept since I was 18. The one where I gave them all the benefit of the doubt just because we shared blood and bad memories. That door was closed now. They could knock all they wanted. But I wouldn't be the one opening it. The quarter closed strong. Client retention was high. 2 new contracts signed before end of month. And for the first time since launching my firm, I didn't flinch when payroll hit. I watched the numbers settle in the black and felt nothing but calm. Not pride. Not relief. Just clarity. The kind that doesn't come from winning, but from surviving long enough to build your own terms. That weekend, I logged into the trust dashboard and initiated a change I'd been thinking about for weeks. The kind of change you don't make in anger. You make it when you're done waiting for people to become who they promise to be. 3 names. 2 of them my ments. Janelle and Theo. Bright, stubborn, fiercely loyal. I'd hired them both fresh out of school, trained them when no one else would, and watched them turn into the kind of leaders I used to hope my own family would recognize in me. The third name, a nonprofit, I'd quietly supported for years. Women's Digital Security Fund. They helped survivors reclaim stolen identities and rebuild their online lives from scratch. No press, no gala invites, just real work that mattered. None of the beneficiaries shared my last name. That was the point. Not as a middle finger to legacy, but as a full stop. An end to the cycle that said family earns default rights just by existing. That said trust must be extended before it's earned. That said I owed them just because. I didn't owe anyone. And the people who'd proved themselves? They'd earned what came next. When I bought my new home in Asheville, an old craftsman with cedar beams and a sunroom I turned into a workspace, I listed no cosigners. No emergency contacts with my blood. The title bore one name, mine. I still remembered when Dad's name had been on every account. First out of necessity, then tradition, then guilt. When I first opened my business account, he insisted on being my backup in case anything happened. I didn't fight it then. Just let it happen. Thought maybe it meant something. Protection. Presence. Now, his name wasn't even on the backup contact list for my dentist. Emily once said I was cold. She had no idea how many years I'd spent being warm to people who only came close to steal heat. This wasn't revenge. This was repair. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't post about it. Didn't make a speech or light a match. I just changed the names, moved the decimal, and wrote the final chapter of a story that began the moment I realized family isn't who shares your blood. It's who guards your name when you're not in the room. And none of them ever did. It was late autumn when I saw his name again. Not in a letter. Not in a voicemail. Not through some desperate forwarded plea from Emily. It was during a compliance training I was guest teaching, an internal security protocol workshop for a Fortune 500 firm's audit and risk division. One of the training slides pulled data from a federal watch list feed, an example of cross-referenced fraud tags. And there it was. His name, Daniel Fenwick. Flagged under C21013, known internal abuser, financial exploitation of family member. There was a small exclamation icon next to it. If you hovered, it gave a summary. Confirmed case of familial asset misappropriation. Restitution agreement active. Prior warning ignored. Multiple points of documented proof. Offender used access, proximity, and name recognition to bypass account protections. I didn't flinch. Didn't shift in my chair. Just clicked the tab closed. Sipped my coffee. Let the warmth anchor me. I never followed up on the restitution. I knew he'd taken a plea deal, probably some gentle arrangement. Probation. Repayment plan. Counseling if the judge felt generous. But I never saw a dime come back. No surprise. Didn't need it. The money was never the root. It was the rot he tried to cover with excuses, the assumption that I'd just fold like I always had. But the moment he crossed that line, something changed. Not just the locks on my accounts, the locks in my mind. I had updated the trust charter months earlier. Legal had reviewed it, sealed it, notarized it. And under Section 4B, I'd written a line that no one but me would ever really feel. Access revocable without notice if integrity is compromised by kin. I stared at that line again the day I closed his name out of that training module. Not with pride. Not with sadness. Just confirmation. Final. Sealed. He'd once told me legacy was about what you leave behind. The homes. The names. The history. But I'd learned something different. Legacy isn't what you leave for people. It's what you refuse to leave to them when they betray what you built. Emily moved states eventually. Tried a soft rebrand. Posted once about resilience through family storms. I scrolled past it. I still sent birthday cards to my staff. Still kept a drawer of notes from clients who said I'd saved their data, their peace of mind. Still made sure every contract I wrote, every firewall I coded, had one principle built in. Protection isn't just about what you let in. It's about what you keep out. That winter, I took a trip alone to Vermont. Rented a cabin. Hiked in snow. Lit a fire and slept without checking my phone once. On the first morning, I wrote something in my journal. Just one line. No edits. No flourish. Family isn't who shares your name. It's who respects your boundaries.